Dozens of new state laws go into effect today.
Yeah, they take effect on this day specifically because it's 90 days since the end of the last legislative session. Governor Mills' supplemental budget is now officially law. That includes sending $300 relief checks to more than 500,000 Mainers. Supplemental budget also includes funding to add safety measures for school buses and money for a new program that will require the Department of Public Safety to track rape kits. Some other new laws include extending the state's affordable housing tax credit and limiting rent increases when it comes to mobile home parks. And there are 4 new laws regarding immigration enforcement that will also take effect today.
News Center Maine's Christian Harza takes a closer look at what's changing.
Operation Catch of the Day caught the eye of legislators this session, leading to bills addressing 3 areas: policing, housing, schools, and hospitals. On policing, both LD 1971 and 2058 apply. LD 2058 clarifies that Maine's jails are not required to house detainees by ICE or Border Patrol, and LD 1971 bars law enforcement from working on most immigration operations, limiting communication. After the Biddeford killing, LD 1971 is no less controversial for the Fraternal Order of Police's Mike Eads. He thinks local and federal law enforcement need to trade information.
The beat cop knows people on his block, and they're able to add a lot of intelligence that makes operations like this go a lot easier.
LD 2106 was drafted in response to the federal government removing protections for, quote, sensitive locations. This new Maine law bars staff at state hospitals, public schools, or state libraries from giving immigration agents access to non-public areas within the buildings or access to protected records without a warrant. This policy applies to all Mainers regardless of their immigration status. Places of worship, private schools, daycares, and public libraries do not have to abide by this law but have the option to use it. The final new immigration law, LD 2176, applies to housing, prohibiting landlords from disclosing certain personal information. There are exceptions, such as a warrant, some instances around a criminal act, and other circumstances like selling or refinancing the home.
These laws are proof that people in Maine and our elected officials will not sit idly by when our neighbors are in need.
Chief Counsel for the ACLU of Maine, Zach Hayden, says these laws are directed at Maine, not the federal government.
We expect that ICE will continue to ignore the law and ignore the Constitution. That has become their modus operandi. But we expect more from people in Maine.
The Scarborough Town Council is holding a vote today to call for Maine's congressional delegation to investigate the ICE facility in that town. Federal officials use the facility on Manson-Libby Road as a processing center. Locals want federal officials to consider relocating or just closing it. This all comes in response to the fatal shooting by ICE agents earlier this month in Biddeford. Scarborough's Town Council will meet to discuss all of this tonight at 6 o'clock.
Also happening today, an appeals court is set to hear arguments over a Maine law that would cap donations to political action committees known as super PACs. Back in 2024, Mainers approved Question 1 to cap annual contributions to PACs at $5,000. The law would also force people to disclose any contribution to PACs. Originally, donors contributing less than $50 to candidates or political committees did not have to disclose their identity. After the law passed, the group Dinner Table Action sued, saying that would violate their First Amendment rights. A federal judge agreed, but the state filed an appeal soon after. Today's arguments are set to begin at 9:30. President Trump took part in honoring the late Senator Lindsey Graham this week.
And on the same day, he also met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
Fresh fighting overnight in the Middle East, shattering a days-long pause in strikes. U.S. Central Command now saying it successfully knocked down a wave of Iranian missiles launched in an attempted surprise attack on American forces based in the Middle East. CENTCOM also saying the U.S. military joined with Saudi Arabia to strike Iran-aligned terrorists in Iraq that they say targeted U.S. forces and Saudi energy infrastructure with drones. It all comes just just as President Trump had voiced optimism about progress in diplomatic talks, while again threatening more destruction if Iran doesn't agree to a long-term deal.
I could take out most of their bridges in less than an hour. All of their power plants would be gone.
Earlier Tuesday, the president met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who downplayed any friction over the allies' goals for the Iran war.
We have a common commitment. We don't want to see this fanatic regime in Tehran have nuclear weapons.
Also at the White House, President Trump separately hosted Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who then met with senators on Capitol Hill in his push for more American missile defense systems.
I shared what we need, our needs. I shared it with the president.
Both world leaders came to Washington for the funeral services for the late Senator Lindsey Graham.
He was a force of nature, and I will miss him greatly.
And Tuesday night, the Senate voted to advance a sweeping Russia sanctions bill that Senator Graham had been pressing for and that now bears his name. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.